All right, so you brought us a whole stack of Home Alone stories to dive into for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
A YouTube video, to be precise,
Okay.
called 10 Scary True Home Alone Stories
Mm-hmm.
from the channel Mr. Nightmare. So,
Sounds scary.
yeah, so you're clearly in the mood for a good scare.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I get it.
Right.
There's something about these stories that just taps into a primal fear we all share.
Yeah.
That feeling of being vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
isolated, and facing the unknown.
Yeah.
Especially in the place we should feel safest, our own homes.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It's fascinating how these stories play on our expectations of security. Home is supposed to be our sanctuary, but these narratives turn that idea on its head,
Yeah.
reminding us that even within those four walls, there's potential for things to go very wrong.
Exactly. And what I find so compelling is how these stories often start with the ordinary.
Yeah.
The mundane, like a creaking floorboard, a late-night phone call, and then quickly escalate into something truly unsettling.
Right.
Like that story about the chimney intruder.
Oh, yeah.
You're in a remote country house all alone, and suddenly there's a crash on the roof.
Oh.
Then this persistent banging starts coming from inside the sealed chimney. Wow.
I know. That shift from an external threat to something invading your inner sanctum
Right?
is what really ratchets up the tension.
Yeah.
It's like the classic horror movie trope of something lurking in the basement or the attic.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's a chimney.
Right?
A space that's supposed to be a conduit for warmth and comfort, not a point of entry for something sinister.
And the fact that this banging goes on for an hour,
Oh my gosh.
just imagine the psychological toll that takes.
Oh, yeah.
You're trying to rationalize it, telling yourself it must be an animal or the wind or something.
Right.
But that nagging doubt keeps creeping in.
Uh-huh.
Then, as if the chimney intruder wasn't enough,
Oh, no.
the front door starts rattling like someone's trying to force it open.
Oh, wow. This is terrifying.
I know. Okay.
This is where the story taps into our fight or flight response.
Okay.
It's a physiological reaction that's hardwired into our brains, preparing us to either confront the threat or escape from it.
Yeah.
In this case, the listener is faced with a dilemma.
Right.
Do they cower in fear, hoping the intruder goes away? Or do they take action, confronting the unknown head on?
And what's so interesting is that the listener actually chooses to confront the unknown. Wow. They look through the people, see nothing, but the rattling continues.
Oh, gosh.
So they take a deep breath and throw open the door, expecting the worst, and then nothing, silence.
What? Oh, my goodness.
I know.
That sudden silence is almost more unnerving than the noise itself.
Right.
It leaves you suspended in the state of heightened anxiety, wondering if the danger has truly passed or if it's just lurking out of sight, waiting to strike.
Right.
It plays into our primal fear of the unseen, the lurking predator that we can't quite pinpoint.
Okay, that story definitely gave me chills.
Yeah.
And speaking of things going bump in the night, let's move on to another one that plays on those fears.
Huh.
The attic story.
Oh, attics, okay.
Now, attics are inherently creepy places, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're often dark, dusty,
Yeah.
filled with forgotten objects that hold a certain eerie charm.
Yeah, I'm thinking about all the attics I've been in.
Oh, totally.
Attics are often associated with the past, with memories and secrets that have been tucked away and forgotten. They represent a kind of psychological attic as well, a place where we store our own repressed thoughts, fears, and desires.
So you're saying that our fascination with creepy attics might be a way of confronting those hidden parts of ourselves?
Yeah, I think there's something to that.
That's kind of deep.
It's definitely something to consider, and this particular story plays on that inherent creepiness of attics.
Oh, okay.
The listener is home alone and they hear shuffling noises coming from the attic. They know they should probably just ignore it, but curiosity gets the better of them.
Of course it does. We all know how these stories go.
You're right.
What happens next?
Armed with a flashlight because the attic light is broken,
Okay.
they cautiously make their way up the creaky stairs.
Oh my gosh.
The attic is vast and shadowy with high ceilings and exposed beams that cast long, eerie shadows.
Spooky.
The air is thick with dust and the musty smell of old wood.
Oh yeah. The scene is set for a classic horror movie.
Uh-huh.
You could practically hear the ominous soundtrack playing in the background.
And then the listener hears a distinct creaking sound.
Oh.
Like someone is walking across the wooden floorboards, their heart starts pounding, and they shine their flashlight around the room, trying to pinpoint the source of the noise.
But they don't see anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's that classic horror trope, the unseen presence that you can hear but not see.
Exactly. And then they hear something else.
What?
A soft rustling sound. like something brushing against a plastic bag.
Oh.
That's it. They've had enough.
Yeah.
They turn and run back down the stairs, slamming the attic door shut behind them.
I don't blame them. Who knows what could have been lurking up there in the darkness? And that's what makes this story so effective. It plays on our fear of the unknown, the things that go bump in the night, the possibility that something sinister might be hiding, just out of sight.
It also highlights the power of sound in horror.
Right.
When we can't see clearly, our other senses become heightened, especially our hearing. Those creaking floorboards, the rustling plastic bag, those sounds become amplified in our minds, taking on a sinister quality.
Okay, let's take a break from the bumps in the night and shift gears to something a little more modern, a little more tech-savvy.
Oh, okay.
We're calling this theme, Technology Can Be Creepy. And honestly, after hearing this next story, you might think twice about talking to your digital assistant.
Oh gosh, I use those all the time.
I know, me too. It's going to be scary.
This story is particularly relevant in our increasingly digitized world.
Right.
As we become more reliant on technology, we also become more vulnerable to its potential downsides.
Yeah.
And this story highlights one of those downsides. The fear of technology turning against us, becoming sentient or being used in ways that we haven't even imagined yet.
Yeah, it's definitely a reminder that technology, for all its benefits, can also be a double-edged sword.
Right.
So let's get into the story.
Okay.
The listener's home alone and wakes up in the middle of the night to the sound of Siri on their phone talking.
Oh.
They check the phone, see nothing unusual, and turn it off, assuming it's just a glitch.
Okay.
But then it happens again.
Oh, no.
I know.
This repetition is key to building the tension. It's no longer a one-off glitch.
Right.
It's a pattern suggesting something more deliberate and intentional is happening.
Yeah.
And that's when the story starts to veer into the territory of the uncanny valley.
For those who aren't familiar with that term, the uncanny valley is this unsettling feeling we get when we encounter something that looks or acts almost human, but not quite.
Right.
It's like a robot that's a little too lifelike. Or a voice that's synthetic, but eerily realistic. It triggers a primal fear in us.
Right.
Because our brains can't quite process what we're seeing or hearing.
Exactly. And in this story, that uncanny valley effect is heightened by the fact that Siri is responding to a sentence the listener didn't say.
Oh, wow.
The phone asks, "What is that found for us?" And Siri replies, "The answer is Thursday, July 4th, 1776.
Oh my gosh.
Now, the listener is really freaked out because they haven't even touched their phone,
Right.
let alone ask Siri anything.
Okay, now I'm officially creeped out.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all experienced those weird tech glitches where our phones seem to have a mind of their own,
Yeah.
but this is next level.
It taps into a growing anxiety we have about the role of technology in our lives. Are we in control of our devices, or are they starting to control us?
Right.
Are we becoming too reliant on these digital assistants,
Yeah.
surrendering too much of our privacy and autonomy in the process?
Those are some big questions to ponder. And this story doesn't exactly provide any easy answers.
No.
It just leaves us with a lingering sense of unease, wondering what's really going on behind those sleek interfaces
Yeah.
and seemingly helpful algorithms.
And the story gets even creepier.
Oh, no.
The third time Siri wakes the listener up, it's responding to their full name,
Oh, God.
saying, "Here's the info for listener's name."
Okay, no thank you.
Now, this listener is so freaked out that they run to their parents' room and sleep in there for the rest of the night.
I don't blame them one bit.
Yeah.
It's that sense of violation, of something intruding on your personal space,
Yeah.
even if it's just a disembodied voice coming from your phone.
And that sense of violation is magnified by the fact that the listener still doesn't know if it was a glitch or something more sinister.
Right.
It leaves them with this nagging feeling of uncertainty, wondering if their phone is truly safe to use,
Yeah.
or if it's become a portal for something unknown and potentially dangerous.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to be thinking twice before asking Siri for the weather report tonight.
Right.
Let's move on to a theme that's a little more down to earth, but equally terrifying. When strangers intrude.
Oh, okay.
We'll start with a story that plays on our fear of the unexpected, the sudden intrusion of something dark and dangerous
Right.
into our supposedly safe havens.
This next story is a reminder that intrusions can happen anywhere, anytime.
Right.
Even in the middle of the night in a seemingly safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's about a late-night knock at the window.
Oh, man. Window knocking stories always get to me. There's something so inherently creepy about that sound in the dead of night.
Right?
especially when you're home alone.
Yeah.
It's like a primal signal, a warning that something is amiss, that your sanctuary has been breached.
And this story really plays on that primal fear.
Okay.
The listener is up late playing computer games. It's around 2 a.m.
Okay.
when they hear a knock at their window.
Mhm.
They look, but no one's there. They figure it's just some kids messing around and go back to their game.
Okay.
But then another knock.
That second knock changes everything.
Yeah.
It goes from a random annoyance to a deliberate targeting.
Right.
And suddenly the listener is thrust into this unsettling game of cat and mouse, trying to figure out who's out there and what they want.
It's a classic example of how our perception of safety can shift in an instant.
Yeah.
1 minute you're feeling secure in your own home. The next you're hyper aware of every creak and groan of the house.
Yeah.
Every shadow that flickers outside your window.
And in this story, that heightened awareness leads the listener to make a fateful decision
Oh.
out of a mix of curiosity and perhaps a bit of naive concern.
Yeah.
They decide to open the window, just a crack to see who's there.
Oh, no.
And that's when things take a terrifying turn.
This is where the story taps into another primal fear. The fear of the unknown. The listener has opened a portal, literally and figuratively, to the outside world, and something dark and dangerous has come rushing in.
Two hands shoot out from the darkness,
Oh my gosh!
grabbing the window and trying to force it open.
Oh, wow.
The listener screams, startled and terrified,
Uh-huh.
but also realizing they have to fight back.
Yeah.
They start throwing punches, kicking anything to get the intruder away from the window.
This is a prime example of the fight or flight response kicking into high gear.
Mm-hmm.
The listener's body is flooded with adrenaline,
Okay.
giving them a surge of energy and strength they didn't know they had.
Oh.
They're not thinking rationally at this point. They're acting on pure instinct,
Right.
driven by a primal urge to survive.
And in a moment of desperate improvisation, the listener grabs a nearby lamp and bashes the intruder in the head with it.
Wow.
It's a scene straight out of a home invasion thriller, but with a real-life twist.
It's a testament to the human capacity for resilience, for finding strength and resourcefulness in the face of extreme danger.
Yeah.
And thankfully, in this case, that quick thinking and decisive action pays off.
The intruder stumbles backward, momentarily stunned, and the listener seizes the opportunity to slam the window shut and lock it.
Okay.
They stand there, heart pounding, listening intently for any sign that the intruder might be trying to get back in.
Right.
But after a few tense moments, there's only silence.
That silence, however, is not a comfort.
Right.
It's a reminder that the danger is still out there, lurking somewhere in the darkness. And the listener is left with the chilling realization that their home is no longer the safe haven they once believed it to be.
It's a reminder that we're all vulnerable, no matter how secure we think we are.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to another intruder story. This one a bit more subtle, but equally unnerving.
All right.
It takes place in a basement, and it involves a frantic dog,
Okay.
a closed boiler room door, and a whole lot of suspense.
This story is interesting because it highlights the importance of trusting our animal companions.
They often have a sixth sense when it comes to danger, and their reactions can be vital warnings that we shouldn't ignore.
Absolutely. Dogs in particular are known for their keen senses and their protective instincts.
Right.
And in this story, the listener's dog Layla becomes the unlikely heroine,
Okay.
alerting them to a potential threat that they might have otherwise missed.
It starts with Layla barking like crazy, a sound that's out of character for her normally calm demeanor. The listener follows her down to the basement,
Okay.
where Layla is standing in front of the closed boiler room door,
Right.
barking furiously and scratching at the wood.
It's that classic horror movie trope.
Yeah.
The dog that senses something evil lurking in the shadows but can't quite articulate the danger to its human companions.
And this story plays on that trope to great effect, creating a palpable sense of tension and dread.
Right.
Listener knows that something is wrong, but they don't know what.
Yeah.
Do they open the door and confront the unknown, potentially putting themselves in danger? Or do they trust Layla's instincts and retreat?
It's a tough call, especially when you're home alone and already feeling vulnerable.
Right.
So what does the listener decide to do?
They hesitate for a moment, torn between curiosity and caution. But ultimately, they decide to trust Layla's judgment.
Okay.
They grab her collar and drag her back upstairs, locking the basement door behind them.
That was a smart move.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to listen to your gut instincts, or in this case, your dog's instincts, and get out of a potentially dangerous situation.
Exactly. And as it turns out, that decision might have saved the listener's life. Later, when the listener's dad comes home, they discover that a ladder had been placed against the basement window.
Yeah.
And the window had been smashed open.
Oh, wow. So someone had definitely been trying to break in.
Yeah.
And if the listener hadn't listened to Layla and stayed in the basement, who knows what might have happened.
It's a chilling reminder that intrusions can happen anywhere, even in the supposed safety of our homes. And it underscores the importance of being aware of our surroundings, paying attention to any signs of trouble, and trusting our instincts, both human and animal.
Okay, well, these intruder stories are definitely making me want to double-check all my locks and windows tonight. Let's shift gears a bit and explore a theme that's a little more psychological. A little more about the hidden dangers that lurk just beneath the surface of everyday life.
Okay.
I like it.
This next theme is called Hidden Dangers.
Okay.
And it's all about those unexpected threats that we often don't see coming. The ones that hide in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to strike.
All right, I'm intrigued. What kind of hidden dangers are we talking about?
We'll start with a story that takes place in a child's bedroom.
Okay.
A space that's supposed to be a sanctuary, a place of comfort and security.
Yeah.
But in this story, that sanctuary is violated in a truly unsettling way.
Okay, that sounds creepy. Tell me more.
The listener in the story is a child lying in bed trying to fall asleep. They hear a toy fall over in their closet, a sound that's not unusual in a kid's room.
Right.
But then they hear something else.
What?
The closet door starts to wiggle and slowly unlocks.
Oh, that's just wrong. I mean, closets are already kind of creepy places even for adults.
Yeah.
They're dark and cramped, and you never know what might be hiding in the back.
Right.
But the idea of a closet door unlocking on its own,
Yeah.
especially when you're a child, is just nightmare fuel.
It plays on our primal fear of the unknown, of something lurking in the shadows just out of sight.
Yeah.
And the slow, deliberate unlocking of the door adds to the suspense,
Right.
suggesting that this is no ordinary event.
Yeah.
This is something intentional, something sinister.
So what does the child do?
Terrified, they hide under the covers, not daring to make a sound.
Oh my gosh.
They can hear the closet door creaking open.
Right.
And they imagine all sorts of horrible things lurking inside.
I can only imagine.
Then after what feels like an eternity, they peek out from under the covers and see a figure standing next to their bed looking down at them.
Oh my God. That is a straight-up horror movie scene. It's every child's worst nightmare, the monster in the closet coming to life.
And what makes the story even more unsettling is that the figure doesn't attack the child or try to harm them.
Oh, really?
It simply looks out the window for a moment, then walks away,
Oh,
leaving the front door wide open.
that's even creepier than a direct attack.
Right.
It suggests that this figure has other motives, something more sinister than just random violence.
Yeah.
It's like they're scouting the place, assessing the situation, maybe even planning something for later.
It leaves the child with a lingering sense of unease, of vulnerability, of knowing that their safe space has been violated.
Right.
And it raises a lot of questions that are never answered.
Oh, gosh.
Who was that figure?
Right.
What were they doing in the child's room?
Yeah.
And will they come back?
Okay. I'm officially spooked. I need a nightlight. Like right now, let's move on to another story that explores the theme of hidden dangers. This one, a bit more grounded in reality, but no less disturbing.
Okay.
It's about a next-door neighbor who takes creepy to a whole new level.
This story is particularly chilling because it highlights the dark side of obsession and the feeling of being constantly watched even within your own home.
Right.
It's a reminder that danger doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it's lurking right next door in this seemingly familiar and harmless.
Yeah, it's like the saying goes, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But in this case, the enemy isn't even an enemy.
Right.
It's just a creepy, obsessive neighbor who can't take a hint.
The listener in this story is a 16-year-old girl who has the misfortune of living next door to Joey,
Okay.
a 17-year-old boy who has developed an unhealthy fixation on her.
Ugh, that's so creepy.
Every time she goes outside, Joey seems to magically appear, as well as if he's been watching her through the windows, waiting for her to emerge.
It's like he's turned her life into his own personal reality show, and she's the unwilling star.
It's a classic example of stalking behavior, which is often fueled by a sense of entitlement, a belief that the stalker has a right to the victim's time and attention, regardless of the victim's feelings.
Right.
And what makes this story even more disturbing is that Joey doesn't seem to understand or care that his behavior is unwelcome.
The listener tries to make it clear that she's not interested. But Joey just doesn't get the hint. She finally confronts him directly, telling him to leave her alone. But his reaction is chilling.
What does he do?
He gets angry, but it's not the kind of anger you'd expect from a teenage boy.
Oh.
It's a cold, unsettling anger.
Oh, wow.
Described as the kind of angry look a toddler gives their parents when they can't have a toy.
Okay, that is super creepy.
I know, right?
It suggests a lack of emotional maturity, an inability to understand or respect boundaries,
Right.
and a potential for escalating behavior.
And the story takes an even darker turn one night when the listener is home alone.
Uh-oh.
She feels her bed shift slightly, as if someone is under it.
Oh, my gosh.
She leans over the edge of the bed, looks underneath, and screams.
What?
Joey's lying there staring up at her with a creepy grin on his face.
Oh, my God. That is so violating and disturbing. I mean, a bed is supposed to be your safe space, your sanctuary.
Right.
And to have that space invaded by a creepy stalker is just beyond creepy.
It's a complete breach of trust and security,
Right.
and it highlights the psychological trauma that stalking victims often experience.
Yeah.
It's not just about the physical danger. It's about the constant fear, the feeling of being watched,
Right.
the knowledge that someone is invading your personal space and violating your privacy.
So what happens next?
Yeah, does the listener call the police?
She does, but not before Joey manages to slip out of her house and back to his own. The police arrive, search Joey's house, and find him hiding in his room. He admits that this wasn't his first time sneaking into the listener's room and hiding under her bed.
Oh, that is just so messed up.
Yeah.
It's like something out of a psychological thriller, but this is real life.
Right.
It makes you wonder what kind of person would do something like that.
It speaks to a deeper psychological disturbance,
Yeah.
a lack of empathy, and a distorted view of reality.
Right?
And it's a reminder that stalking is a serious crime, often a precursor to more violent offenses.
So what happened to Joey? Did he get arrested?
Yes, he was arrested and charged with stalking and trespassing.
Well, good.
And thankfully, the listener was able to get a restraining order against him.
Okay.
But the emotional scars of that experience likely lingered long after the legal case was closed.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to be sleeping with the lights on tonight.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a theme that's a little less about individual stalkers and more about the inherent creepiness of certain locations. Rural isolation,
Okay.
right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
city, you can always find a person around.
Yeah. Right. Cities often conjure images of crowds and constant activity,
Right.
while rural areas evoke a sense of peace and tranquility. But that isolation, that distance from others, can also create a unique breeding ground for fear.
It's like the classic horror movie setup, right?
Yeah.
The group of friends going out to a remote cabin in the woods, miles from civilization.
Right.
No cell service.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. And this next story taps into that classic horror trope. The listener lives in a remote area, no close neighbors, for miles. And they're out in their yard tanning, enjoying the peace and quiet.
Okay.
But then they notice someone watching them from the woods.
Okay, that's already creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, just the idea of being watched when you think you're alone is unsettling enough. But in a rural area where help is far away,
Right.
it takes on a whole new level of creepiness.
And what's interesting about this story is that the listener doesn't just ignore the watcher or run inside. They actually call out to the stranger, asking if they need anything.
That's brave, or maybe a little foolish depending on how things turn out.
Right.
So what happens next?
The stranger emerges from the woods and approaches the listener, making up a story about needing help with a broken water pump at his house up the hill.
Okay.
But the listener, wisely trusting their instincts,
Right.
lies and says they're about to leave.
Good call.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that sometimes the best way to deal with a potential threat is to simply remove yourself from the situation, even if it means being a little rude or dismissive.
Exactly. And in this case, that quick thinking might have saved the listener from a dangerous encounter.
Right.
But the story doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
About an hour later, the listener realizes they left their sunglasses outside.
Okay.
They cautiously go back out, scanning the area to make sure the stranger isn't around. But as they bend down to pick up their sunglasses, they see him again lurking behind their shed.
Oh, no. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like something out of a stalker movie, the creepy guy who just won't go away.
It's a reminder that in rural areas, there's often nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
Right.
You're exposed, vulnerable, and at the mercy of whoever might be out there.
So what does the listener do?
Thinking quickly, they yell that they're calling the police and run back inside.
Okay, good.
The police arrive, take a description of the man, and hopefully he never bothers the listener again.
Okay.
But it's a chilling reminder that even in the most peaceful and idyllic settings, danger can lurk just beyond the trees.
Okay, well, I'm definitely adding pepper spray to my hiking gear.
Right.
Let's move on to a theme that's particularly close to my heart, as someone who was a latchkey kid growing up. The vulnerability of children.
Oh?
These stories are always tough to hear because they remind us of how innocent and trusting kids can be, and how easily that trust can be exploited.
It's a difficult topic, but an important one to discuss.
Right.
Children, especially younger ones, are often less aware of potential dangers, and they haven't yet developed the same level of street smarts and self-protection skills as adults.
Right.
And this next story really highlights that vulnerability.
Okay, tell me about it.
The listener was only 7 years old at the time, spending the night at their grandma's house.
Okay.
The grandma, being a bit old school, didn't drive, so she would often walk everywhere.
Right.
One day, she decides to walk to the library about 10 blocks away, leaving the listener home alone.
Now, leaving a 7-year-old home alone might seem unthinkable today, but back then it wasn't as uncommon.
Right.
Parenting norms were different, and there was perhaps a greater sense of community trust.
Exactly. It's important to consider the historical and social context of these stories. What might have been considered acceptable behavior or parenting practices a few decades ago might be viewed as completely irresponsible or even dangerous today.
Right, so the grandma, being a bit old-fashioned, tells the listener not to answer the door for anyone.
Okay.
But while she's gone, the phone rings.
Uh-oh.
And being a curious kid, the listener picks up the phone.
It's a seemingly harmless act, something most kids would do without a second thought.
Right.
But in this case, it has terrifying consequences.
Oh no, what happens?
It's a man on the other end of the line, and he starts asking a series of seemingly innocuous questions. The listener's name, whether they're alone, where they live.
Right.
But to someone with more experience, those questions would raise red flags.
Yeah.
It's a classic example of a predator using a technique called grooming.
Oh gosh.
Gradually building trust with the child, gathering information about their vulnerabilities, and ultimately preparing them for exploitation.
That's chilling. And what's so disturbing is that these predators often sound friendly and approachable,
Right.
making it even harder for kids to recognize the danger.
Exactly. And in this story, the listener, being only 7 years old, has no idea that they're talking to a potential predator.
Right.
They innocently answer the man's questions, giving away personal information that could put them at risk.
So what happens next?
The man hangs up the phone, and the listener, thinking nothing of it, goes back to playing.
Okay.
But about an hour later, there's a knock at the door.
Oh.
The listener, remembering their grandma's instructions, stays on the couch.
Okay.
But then the man calls out, "I see you on the couch," listener's name.
Oh my God. That is so terrifying.
I know, right?
The man from the phone is now at the door. I can't even imagine the fear that child must have felt.
It's a nightmare scenario, and it highlights the importance of teaching children about stranger danger and giving them clear guidelines for what to do if someone they don't know comes to the door.
Right. And in this case, the listener's grandma had given them those instructions.
Yeah.
But even then, it wasn't enough to prevent the man from finding them.
Right.
So what happens next? Does the man try to break in?
He does. He tries to lure the child outside with promises and candy,
Gosh.
then starts banging and thumping on the back door, trying to force it open.
Oh my gosh.
The listener is terrified, hiding on the couch, praying that their grandma will come home soon.
This is so suspenseful.
Yeah.
It's like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode.
And just when things seem hopeless, the listener's grandma returns,
Oh, thank goodness.
yelling at the man to get off her property and threatening to call the police.
Wow.
The man takes off in his truck, and the listener is safe.
Oh, thank goodness. It's a close call. A reminder that even with the best intentions and precautions, children can still be vulnerable to predators.
It's a story that highlights the importance of vigilance, of being aware of our surroundings,
Right.
and of teaching children about the potential dangers that exist in the world, even in seemingly safe and familiar places.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to be giving my kids an extra hug tonight.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our final story, one that takes us back to the theme of hidden dangers, but with a twist.
Okay.
This one is about the unknown lurking within the walls of our homes. The things that go bump in the night that we can't see but can definitely hear.
Oh, this sounds like right up my alley. I love these creepy stories.
Me too. This is going to be a good one.
This story plays on our primal fear of the unseen.
Right.
The things that go bump in the night. The possibility that something sinister might be hiding just out of sight within the very structure of our homes.
It's like that classic horror movie trope.
Yeah.
The haunted house, the
Whoa.
creepy noises in the walls,
Right.
the sense that you're not alone even when you think you are.
Exactly. And this story really taps into that primal fear.
Okay.
The listener has recently moved into a new house and starts noticing strange sounds coming from inside the walls.
Okay, that's not unusual, right?
Yeah.
Houses settle pipes make noises.
True, but in this case, the sounds are more than just the usual creaks and groans of an old house.
Oh, really?
They're persistent, they seem to be moving around, and they're coming from different parts of the house.
Okay.
The listener becomes convinced that some kind of animal is living in the walls.
I can see how that would be unsettling. But it's just an animal, right?
Well, that's what the listener thinks at first.
Okay.
But things take a turn for the bizarre when they start noticing that their food is disappearing at an alarming rate. They're eating much faster than usual, and they can't explain why.
That's creepy.
I don't know.
It's like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
The unseen entity that's slowly draining your life force, starting with your food supply.
It's a classic example of how horror often works by suggestion, by creating a sense of unease and dread without explicitly showing the source of the threat.
Right, and in this story, that sense of dread is amplified by the fact that the listener is living alone in a new house.
Right.
They don't have any family or friends nearby to reassure them, and they're still getting used to the sounds and rhythms of their new home.
So they're already in a heightened state of awareness,
Right.
more attuned to any unusual noises or occurrences.
Yeah.
And then one night, things escalate to a whole new level of terror.
Oh, boy.
The listener wakes up in the middle of the night to the sound of breathing, but it's not their own breathing.
Oh, no.
It sounds like someone else is in the room breathing right next to them.
Oh, that is terrifying.
I know.
I can't even imagine the fear and panic that listener must have felt.
They flip on the lamp and the breathing stops.
Okay.
At first, they try to dismiss it as their imagination playing tricks on them,
Right.
but deep down, they know something isn't right.
It's that classic horror movie moment, right?
Yeah.
You hear a noise, you investigate, you find nothing. But you still have that nagging feeling that something is wrong, that you're not alone.
Right.
And that feeling is often more terrifying than actually seeing the monster.
Exactly. And in this story, that feeling of unease doesn't go away.
Right.
It lingers, grows stronger, and eventually culminates in a truly terrifying encounter.
So what happens next?
The next night, the listener is lying in bed trying to sleep, but they're sweating in the heat because their AC isn't working properly.
Okay.
They've already discovered that some of the vents aren't blowing air, including the one right next to their bed.
Right.
And then they hear it again, the sound of breathing coming from the vent.
Oh no, I would be out of that house so fast.
That's like the ultimate violation. Someone or something living inside your walls, breathing your air, watching you while you sleep.
It's a primal fear. The fear of invasion of our safe space being violated by something unknown and potentially dangerous.
So what does the listener do?
I don't know. I'm on the edge of my seat.
They grab a flashlight and shine it into the vent, but what they see makes them drop the flashlight and scream in terror.
Oh my gosh.
They're peering through the cracks of the vent is a face. The first thing they see are the eyes wide open and glowing in the darkness.
Oh my God, that is the stuff of nightmares. I would have fainted right there.
It's a terrifying climax to the story, and it reveals the source of the mystery.
What if it?
A homeless man had been living in the walls of the house, using the vents as a way to move around undetected.
Wow, that is just messed up. It's like something out of a horror movie, but it's real.
Right.
And it makes you wonder what other hidden dangers might be lurking in our own homes, unseen and unheard.
It's a thought-provoking story, to say the least. And it reminds us that even in our modern world, with all its technological advancements and conveniences, we're still vulnerable to the primal fears that have haunted humanity for centuries.
This whole deep dive has been a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, it has.
From creepy chimney intruders to stalker neighbors to creepy Siri encounters to the ultimate fear. Someone living inside your walls.
It's been quite a journey through the landscape of fear, exploring those dark corners of our psyches and examining how those fears manifest in both real and imagined threats.
Well, I know I'm definitely going to be sleeping with the lights on tonight and maybe investing in a home security system and a therapy session.
A little caution and self-awareness never hurts.
Right.
But remember, fear is a natural human emotion, and it can actually be helpful in keeping us safe.
Yeah,
It's when fear becomes irrational or debilitating that it becomes a problem.
that's a good point. It's all about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Being aware of potential dangers,
Yeah.
but not letting fear control our lives.
Exactly, and I think that's a great takeaway from this deep dive. Fear can be a powerful motivator, but it's important to use that fear wisely, to learn from it, and to take appropriate actions to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Well said. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today. It's been truly enlightening, even if it has given me a few nightmares in the making.
It's been my pleasure, and to you, our listener, I'd like to leave you with one final thought.
Go.
Which of these stories resonated with you the most? And what steps can you take, even small ones, to feel safer and more secure in your own life?
Great question. We encourage you to reflect on those questions and maybe even share your thoughts with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay safe.
Stay safe out there, everyone.